Hey, good morning. I'm out here fire hardening my son's hickory bow today. It takes like 2 hours, like a 2 hour process, could be a little more. And today I'm going to talk about some of the horrors I went through in my life. And the reason I'm doing this is that the things that maybe you are going through in your life, my story might be able to help you. I found great relief in doing outdoor activities and archery and just getting out of the house and experiencing different things. So I grew up with a father who drank a lot. And when he came home from work, he'd start drinking and he'd get real nasty and he'd hit me. He hit my mother. I remember being 6 years old and I couldn't go to school because I had a black eye from him. So they kept me home and said I was sick until the black eye healed. I used to have a bicycle and I would take that bicycle even at 6 years old. And when I knew he was coming home after school, I knew he was coming home. I would hop on that bike and I'd take my fishing pole and I'd go down by the water. And I had a lure. I didn't care if I caught anything or not. I'd be throwing it in the water, trying to catch something. And it would just get me out of the house away from him because I knew what horrors awaited for me when he came home and he started drinking. And actually doing that kept me sane at even an age of 6 years old. Going outside and fishing for a distraction was a great thing. When I'd get done fishing and the street lights started coming on, that's when I knew I had to be home. I had to be home when the street lights came on. And even then, I avoided them the best I could. So a lot of times we'd sit down for dinner and he'd be pretty tanked by then. And I'd sit at the table, and even at like 6 years old, 5 years old, maybe if I glanced over, he'd say, "What are you looking at?" And the next thing you know, a dish would come flying or something. It wasn't many times around the holidays that I actually sit down at the table and eat because he was always drunk and ready to start something to ruin every holiday that there was. And the only reason everybody has these stories, everybody has these horrible stories, but I'm just going to share this with you because there's a lot of things that helped me get through this horrible life. And it would include the outdoors. Um, I remember when I was really young, I got my first bow and arrow set. It was one of those little white fiberglass bows with the rubber suction cups. And I got that and I loved it. I loved it. I went outside, I was shooting all the time at different things in the backyard. And the only thing was the rubber suction cups really didn't stick to anything. So me being me, even at a young age, I took those rubber suction cups off and I went to stick them in a pencil sharpener. And guess what? They didn't fit. So I'd sneak out my mother's kitchen knife and I'd shave it down until it could fit in a pencil sharpener and I'd sharpen it. Well, that thing stuck in everything. And I'd aim at the ground and it would stuck everywhere. Well, I guess once they seen what I did to the tips, that bow and arrow set disappeared. I guess it went in the trash. So a lot of different things happened. I had a paper out when I was younger, and I remember delivering the papers. And I came home, and my Uncle Joe was more like a father to me. He was the only hunter in the family. He took me out to buy my first shotgun many, many years later. But I remember coming home from delivering the papers, and my uncle and aunt were there, and he says to my father, "Hey, you saving for the kid to go to college?" And he looked at me and he goes, "You don't want to go to college, do you?" And I looked at him. Here I am, 12 years old, delivering papers, going, I don't know. I guess not. So, he don't want to go to college. So the next day, I'm delivering papers in the pouring rain, getting drenched. And I'm saying to myself, if I want to get a good job someday, maybe I better go to college. So I wait for him to come home, and I figure I'll catch him before he starts drinking. And he walks in the door, and I go, hey, I've been thinking. I says, maybe I do want to go to college. This is the next day. He goes, you can't. I spent the money already. I was like, I'm 12 years old. He says to me, he spent the money already. This is the next day after my uncle was at the house. So, I'm used to dealing with stuff like that. So I'm out delivering the papers and saying to myself, someday I'm going to be a better father than him. I'm going to have a family. I'm going to take care of my kids, and I'll do everything that he never did to be a good dad. And that came true later on in life. And I guess that could have went either way for me. I could have been following his footsteps, but I guess the experience was so horrible that I went the other way and went the right way. So later on in life, there's all kinds of horrible stories I won't share with you, but later on in life we moved out to Suffolk County, and it's like the country here. The kid across the street had beagles, and he had BB guns, and I had a lot of money that I saved from the paper route. So I bought BB guns. I actually bought a mini bike. We had a fireplace in the house, and in the back behind the house was like a woodlot, all trees laying down. And I'd take that mini bike in the back and a bow saw, and I'd cut wood, and I'd come back with a big log on the mini bike one at a time, and I'd split it. Before you know it, I had a couple of cords of wood, and that got me really strong. I was a really strong kid. This was about 14 years old. And the kid across the street, his father says, listen, I'm sending him for a hunter safety course. Why don't you go with him, and you can take the course and go hunting? I said, okay. So not only did I take the hunter safety course, but I took the bow hunters course. And when I went to a local store that sold everything, they had, I forget the name of it, but they had everything you can imagine. They had tropical fish, they had clothes, they had sporting goods, they had everything you could imagine. And I went to the counter and I looked, and they had bear bows there. And I says to the guy, I want to buy a recurve. I want to buy a bear recurve. So I believe the bow was a grizzly. He says, well, I got to be honest with you. He says, I have the Browning Explorer. And he says, I really believe that's a better bow. I says, no, I heard so much about bear archery and Fred Bear. I really want a bear. So I bought my first bow, was a grizzly. And I practiced and practiced, and I loved it. And it kind of reminded me of when I was a kid with that little fiberglass bow with the suction cups, how much I loved it. But because I had no training, didn't understand anchor points, didn't understand anything, I was terrible with it, all right? But I still loved it. So as time went on, many years later, I read books. I watched pictures. I watched pictures carefully of like Fred Bear shooting, and I seen like he had his top finger like under his nose, and I said, oh, he's touching his nose every time he shoots with that top glove finger, it looked like. That's what I'm thinking. And I started getting better and better, and I loved it. So we'd come home from school, and the books would go down, me and the kid across the street, and he'd put the beagles. I had a Schwinn Stingray with a basket for delivering the papers. And we put a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood, I forget what it was, in the basket. And we put the two beagles in my basket, and my friend had carried the shotguns. My first one was a Mossberg 12 gauge 500, AK maybe, but anyway. And we used to go all over the island. We used to be able to go all over and hunt. We got rabbits, we got pheasants, we got squirrels. And his mom used to cook everything. And everything was super delicious. It was unbelievable what a great cook she was. And it was really a great time in my life, And there was still problems with my father, And when I was 14, like I said, with the wood and all, I was really strong. And one time he went to hit my mother at 14, and I punched him through the kitchen table. And I told him, if you ever touch my mother again, I'll kill you. I will kill you. Do you understand me? I'll kill you. Get out of my house. Get out of my house. I said, I'm not going nowhere. I'm 14 years old. I says, and I'm telling you, I had enough. I says, if you ever touch her again, I'll kill you. Well, he never touched her again that I know of. And life went on. And as time passed, different things happened. I had a very stressful job. And I'd come home and I'd grab that recurve because I loved shooting archery so much. Even though I was stressed up from the traffic and from the day at work, I'd get that recurve out and I'd start shooting and I'd focus. And because I'm focusing on shooting the target, my form and everything, all my stresses would disappear. So the other night I got some bad news, and another friend, have a couple of friends going through cancer, and this one's terminal. And I just figured, I figured I'd share my story too. At one point in my life, I had cancer. And the worst thing about it is you really don't care that so much about you, but you worry about your family that you're leaving behind. And, how are they going to be without you? And what I did was I went outside because I loved hunting so much. I took pictures of scrapes and rubs and trails. And at the time I was using more of the compound than the recurve. And I put together like what you would call like a book report on the computer. And it was just basically to keep my mind off of the cancer, right? So they said, we removed the cancer, and usually that's it, you'll be fine. When the time came, they removed the cancer. Then I get a call, listen, the biopsy came back, and you have two types of cancer, there's serenoma and teratoma. So now we have to take out your lymph nodes to make sure it didn't spread. And he says, to do that, we have to take out your intestines to get all these lymph nodes, and then when we're done, we'll put them back. And that was it. I thought I was done for. So they did it, and waiting for the results and all. And luckily for me, I was one of the lucky ones. It didn't spread. And this was in 1999, and I'm still here today. So I could survive all kinds of stuff by going out fishing, by shooting a bow, by hunting. If you have problems in your life, grab a camera. Go spray yourself with Prematin because of the ticks. Go walk around, take pictures of wildlife. Go fishing. There's plenty of boats, especially like on Long Island. You can go on these charter boats and go out 4 hours and escape the horrors of your life, whatever it is. Sickness, tragedy, work. Use the outdoors to your benefit to get over things. I found out the one friend that he loves hunting. And what did he do after his chemo? He went in the woods. He spent his last days hunting. He's enjoying what he loves. And that's what I did too when I had cancer. I said, I'm going to go down swinging. Okay? I told the doctor, you do whatever you got to do to try and keep me here. And in the meantime, I kept living life the best I could. So that's all. I kind of want to share that. I didn't want to go into a lot of these horror stories. When I was a kid, something caught my attention, and I don't remember who it was. I don't even want to say the name, but I think it might have been like Joe Rogan or somebody on one of his podcasts was saying about how miserable his father was, and he was helping him work on a car one time. And I don't know if he wasn't holding a flashlight or he was doing brakes or something, and all he did was get yelled and screamed at as a little kid. And I remember my father having me out, and I was so little, I couldn't even sit on the seat. My butt was off the seat, and I was pumping the brakes for him. He was bleeding the brakes. And I said, pump, 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 push hard. And I'm pushing, and he's yelling and screaming and cursing on me. Did you take your foot up? I could barely reach the pedal, and he's yelling and screaming at me. And it's just another thing that when I heard that guy's story about his father yelling at him, well, you're holding the flashlight wrong. You got to shine it over here. You got to do this. Here I am, so little. I guess I'm 6, 7 years old. And you got this grown man yelling at me like I'm a piece of dirt. You know what I mean? I'm not doing what he wants me to do correctly. All right. And once again, my escape was hopping on that bike and going fishing every day, getting out of the house. And so if you have an illness, stress, get an archery lesson. I'm telling you, shooting a recurve, you have to focus and do everything right. And as you, the more and more you shoot, the more and more all those problems, even though they're still there, they kind of, they go away, they dissipate, because you have to focus at the job at hand. You have to focus. Your job is to put the arrows right in that target, the 10 ring, the deer target, whatever it is. So that's it. What prompted me to just tell you this is like I said, my friends that are going through the cancer. I feel horrible, but that's life, you know. So any of your troubles that are really bad and you're having a tough time dealing with it, get yourself outside. Go do things outside. It may help. Make sure you tell your children that you love them. Make sure you tell your friends that you love them. You know, tomorrow isn't guaranteed, okay? And have a talk with your kids, too. Tell them, listen, no matter how old you are, you better tell me that you love me because I love you. And life is short. And you tell your children, when you have children, the same thing, okay? When you have stresses in life, turn to the outdoors. I'm hoping it'll help you. Okay, watch my other videos on Barebow Joe. Thanks for watching.